Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react.
Hey, welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. I'm glad you're here today. My name is Sean. I'm hanging out with Kyle. Thanks for tuning in. Kyle, what is going on in the world of you?
So I had to get a haircut a few weeks ago, and my regular barber wasn't available. But it was an emergency. I had to get a haircut.
Yes, I understand those emergencies.
So I checked in at Great Clips, on the app, and
I've never had that kind of emergency. Like, I'm all about getting a haircut right now. I'm not about Great Clips, though.
So what do you do when you need to get an emergency haircut?
I will
Cut it
search
yourself?
until I find a different place.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, my place is Great Clips.
Cool.
It's in
fine.
this strip mall, right by my work. So I go there after work.
Also a problem. If you're going to a haircut place in a strip mall, you're going to the wrong place.
Well, you be the judge. What do you think here?
All right, keep going.
So there's a curb cut not too far down from the Great Clips. So I get out of my van. I'm going with the curb cut. And there's a cleaner, like a dry cleaner, right behind the curb cut. And there's somebody parked in the curb cut, like right in front. I literally can't get to it. And so I come up behind the car in my chair, and I'm sitting down low, right? And I knock on the back window.
Wow.
And the person, they probably looked in their mirror and didn't see anything because I'm so low, right? And then he opens his door and gets out, and he's looking back and, hey, how's it going? He didn't understand what was going on.
Sure.
He said, how are you? What's up?
Yeah. Why are you knocking on my window?
I'm like, because I'm trying to get a haircut. Yeah. I need to get up the curb. And he's like, oh, sorry. All right, I'll move. And then, so he gets in his car, then he gets back out without moving the car. And he goes, hey, so why are you in a wheelchair? And I'm like, dude, seriously? Yeah.
Your car.
So he goes, I try and be polite, right? And I tell him a little bit, and we're talking about it, and we're chatting. And then I'm just like, dude, I need to get past. Can you please move? And so anyway, I just thought it was kind of ridiculous.
I wonder if there was genuine curiosity there, or if he was just continuing to be a jerk.
Well,
blocking it but also masking it by curiosity.
Totally, because he told me a story about how he was in a wheelchair for a little while. And how infuriating is that? He's like, oh yeah, I was in a wheelchair for 3 months or what. I'm like, dude, just move the car.
I think I shared the story about the cruise ADA bathroom being tied up a couple years ago or last year.
Yeah.
The guy comes out and is like, I was in a wheelchair once. I'm like, that doesn't make it okay. Anyway, it's unfortunate that so many people have no idea what that curb cut's for, or the hash mark, or the gore, or whatever it's called. Those hash areas next to a disabled spot. Yeah. Unfortunate. Okay, for today's Newsworthy from Fox 5K VVU TV. Headline, 6-year-old rescued brother from drowning surprised. And to be fair, that's a legit headline. The reason why I'm bringing it up here is because I feel like that's the kind of headline we should see on nightly news all over the country, if not all over the world. Right. Fox 5 out of Las Vegas has a segment and a team that they call the Surprise Squad. And what they do I don't know how often. I visit my mom often near Las Vegas, so I caught the news on one of my recent trips. And they did a whole segment, 5 or 6 minutes probably, on this little boy, 6 years old. His 2-year-old brother had fallen into the pool, and this 6-year-old jumped in and saved his life.
Wow.
And the surprise squad for this local television show, what they do is they have sponsors, local businesses, and they find ways to actively honor those types of small town heroes or good Samaritans or whatever it may be. So they gave this kid a full-on parade. They had the fire trucks come out to his house. They had police cars. The mayor came out and different local celebrities. I assume,
Right.
I don't remember, but probably somebody from the Vegas Knights and the Vegas Raiders and all these different,
The mascot
profile people, all for this 6-year-old little boy and his family right on his street. They just gave him a private little parade. And of course he's crying and super excited and mom and dad's crying. Anyway, that whole madness, I'm like, we could do this all over the world. Like, why is Fox 5 Las Vegas the only time I've ever seen this? Not saying other towns aren't doing it, but
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
You're right.
But how often do we see or hear a story of a local hero or a good Samaritan doing something seemingly small, obviously saving a life out of the pool? That's a big deal, but I feel like there are stories like this all the time, and that if local news channels and media would just get sponsors involved, you could probably do some really cool things that aren't super expensive, but sharing it's going to be content for your news. But anyway, it's just the whole thing. I was like, this is the kind of headline we should see on all news stories or all local news every night.
Right, yeah. Obviously, it's huge for that little boy, right?
Yeah.
This huge parade. But it's big for anyone who's watching, too, because it shows, hey, we value this stuff.
Yep.
When it's just all political, like yelling and news that's tough to take, then it's like, oh, we value this stuff?
Yep.
But it kind of flips the script a little bit.
And I'm convinced the more we celebrate good, the more good gets repeated. And I would love to see something like that. So I guess also as an encouragement to anybody that influences local news, there is something cool about this surprise squad.
Yeah.
And the way they actively honor and celebrate local heroes, if you will. So you can find more from Fox 5 on YouTube. Search for their channel at Fox 5 Las Vegas. They have all kinds of really cool videos and stories that are certainly newsworthy. All right, Kyle, I want to talk a little bit about change.
Yeah.
We know living with a progressive disease, change happens quite often. Maybe every day, maybe every couple of years. Who knows? Different degrees of change. I'm curious how somebody in our position or yours navigates consistency. Because I feel like once you get in a routine or a habit or a groove, something about the disease is going to change.
Right.
And now you've got to adjust accordingly. I imagine that can't be easy. And I also think, man, that's going to be really expensive. To go from, I think about for you, to go from a truck to a van to a ramp van.
Right.
There's nothing cheap about any of that.
Yeah, yeah. And, I think overall what comes to mind is it requires setting expectations. Like by now, we're 40 years old, over 40, 42. And we've been dealing with the FA for quite a while. Yeah. So we know how to set our mind to expect that things are going to change. So we set expectations for ourselves It's always hard when stuff happens, when you transition to a wheelchair, when you need to start using hand controls. But when that expectation is set, it doesn't make it easy, but it makes it easier, right?
Sure.
Because you know these changes are coming, even if you might not know exactly what they are right now.
Yeah, I imagine too. I was thinking about change and how, in some areas, we want change to happen really fast,
Right.
but in a couple of areas, we want change to happen super slow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have kids, but I feel like I hear parents say it all the time. Oh, they're growing up too soon or too fast. You know, maybe we've experienced it with puppies or kittens. You know, you get a cute puppy and they're really only cute for about 6 months, and all of a sudden they've got a mind in their own. I mean, they're still fun and probably cute, but they're not little anymore.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so in those cases, I know we want change to slow,
Yeah.
and I'm sure we want that too for our disease. But on another hand, we want to see things happen right now. Like we want the guy to move away from the curb cut right now.
Yeah.
We want a cure and treatments right now. We want, going to the gym. I want bigger biceps right now. You know, all these different little
Really?
things.
You've never mentioned that
Yeah.
before, Sean.
Yeah, no. Actually, what I really want are bigger shoulders. So I don't care about my arms as much.
Okay.
But anyway.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to do so. You know, I've just been but contemplating the idea of immediate gratification. How do we balance it? You can't have your cake and eat it too, right?
Yeah.
Is that the saying of the way it is?
I think so.
So trying to manage, I guess, those expectations, as you put it, understanding that some things are going to happen really fast and some things are not.
And once again, I think it's about understanding all the different situations, recognizing when we have the urge to want something to speed up or slow down, and realizing that there's a feeling and a thought that's different than what's actually happening or what's actually going to happen. And I think reconciling that is what we're talking about, right? And so, and it's a constant struggle. No one's got it easy on this front. I think this is one of the things that's really hard for all of us. But I think recognizing that it is hard it's kind of one of the ways we can deal with it.
I've written a lot, and I say often, we've heard it at probably 1,000 different ways and places. Nothing important comes easy. Mm-hmm. You know, if it's easy to do, it's probably not super valuable. And I feel that way about life for us. There's some things are easy, but anything super important or significant, it's going to take a little bit of work. And realizing that the work you put in now, it's going to change in a few months or in a few years, and you're going to have to find a way to adjust.
I think of the approval of Skyclaris that happened last February. I mean, you know, that took 25 years of work to get there, right? And a lot of stuff happened. Just think of the disease progression in you and I and in the community over those 25 years, right? So we want that to happen right now. We don't ever want the disease to progress. And those two things are kind of working against each other. But looking back now and all the work we put in and knowing that it was worth it to have an approved treatment. Obviously 10 years ago it would have been better.
Sure.
But it happened now. This is where we're at. And we put in the work. The community put in the work to get that done. And recognizing like you said, that what we do now is going to pay off in the future, depending on what we do, right?
Yeah.
So,
Speaking of what we do every day, John Maxwell, he talks about change in the sense of just everyday life, growing, personal growth, development, saving money. Just you could apply it 100 different ways, but he's got this quote that's been floating around in my mind for a few months now, especially with the turn of the calendar year.
yeah.
He says, your life will never change until you change something you do daily. Or something to that effect. I don't have it right in front of me.
Right.
But that implies that in order to get to that finish line of 25 years from now, or in order to get to that dollar amount that you want saved, or in order to get to that ideal weight, you're never going to wake up one day and just be there.
Yeah.
It's going to take some attention every day, whether it's 5 minutes here and there or $5 here and there or whatever that goal might be. The objective is going to require some investment of your energy and time and it will on a daily basis in order to get to the point where you are achieving or accomplishing in 5 years, 12 years, 25, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. Little plug here. I think of my book. I mean, it took me and Alex Chancellor, my incredible writer, it took us 3 years to write that book. And, we had the end goal in mind. A book that we could sell to a publisher. But it took 3 years of phone, like 2 or 3 phone calls every week, and working at night and on the weekends, whatever, to get to that point, right? And the finished product, which we're both really, really proud of, is due to all that led up to the accomplishment.
Could you think about all the times people set out to do something big, whether it's a book or an event or whatever it may be,
Right.
and they get a few weeks into it and realize, oh, this is going to take a lot of work.
Yeah.
How many times do we just give up right there?
Yeah.
And I think your book or, 1,000 stories online
Yeah.
reiterate the importance of sticking with it, staying on course, and getting the job done so that in time you can celebrate that accomplishment.
Think back to Race Across America. Are there times that, and I'm struggling to think of this, but for you personally, were there times when you're like, no, like we're not gonna do this, not worth all, because it was a year of preparation.
Sure.
And during the race, obviously there were really hard low points, and were there times when you're like, this isn't a good idea?
I do want to clarify one thing. A year for you because you had joined another team.
Oh, yeah.
And that
okay.
team fell apart for whatever
Right,
reason,
right.
like in November or December. So I didn't come in until December and the ride was in June. So I
Okay.
think most of us had 7 months.
Right.
That's different.
You're very
But
right.
you make a good point. There are plenty of times where I thought this is dumb or foolish or risky. Even on the race itself, it's not in the film. I think a clip made the trailer, but I ended up in the ER at one point, and John Lockwood had to ride a whole lot more than he wanted to one night. And there was a moment where it's like, I can't see. I'm not sure how this is going to work. And we were only halfway through it. If I don't even think we were that far.
Yeah.
But plenty of times where it would have been a whole lot easier to pack up and go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no there's rarely a reward in packing up and going home.
Right. Yeah, I think of a time during the race where a crazy storm came by, and the race officials recommended that we, wait it out basically, and we're like, nah, we're just gonna go for it.
Why would we do that?
And it was a risk, and that was one of those times when I heard them say that, right? That I was like, oh crap, maybe this isn't gonna happen. But anyway, you push through and you realize that the work you put in now is gonna pay off at that finish line.
Not to say sometimes waiting it out is probably valuable.
That's
true. We're not encouraging you to be foolish. You've got to take some calculated risk.
Absolutely, big time. Yeah, no, and we knew 100% that no one was gonna get hurt in that storm. Yeah. Just kidding. No,
what we knew was we were gonna get wet.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right. So, Sean, it occurs to me that with all these things, as we were saying, some things you want to go fast, some things you want to slow down, like the progression of our disease. And there's all these thoughts about time. But if we keep a little perspective and think a little about each of those things and how they fit in the whole progression of our lives, maybe that can put our mind at ease if we think a little objectively about how these things play out and how they play together. And also, I think a big takeaway that we were talking about is, putting in the effort now and realizing that it's going to pay off in the end.
I would also add controlling the controllables and finding ways to not give up, but to release the pressure we put on ourselves on things that really are outside of our control, to be okay with that and to focus our priority and energy on things we can impact.
Sean, thanks for the awesome conversation once again. Let's move on to thank you notes. Both of us recognize the power of gratitude to improve our lives. So who do you have to thank today?
Right now, I'm days away from another cruise with my cruising buddy, Sheila.
Oh, yes.
So
we've heard about
saying
Sheila.
Thank you to Sheila for not only, just being somebody that's fun to be around and hang out with, but she makes these cruises a lot more manageable for me and achievable because the cruise lines love her and give her really good deals that she includes me on. So it's a lot of fun, and I don't want to cruise with anybody else.
Yeah. Thank you, Sheila. All right, my thank you note goes out to fake plants. I have a few fake plants in my place. As you might have noticed, actually I have 2, and I love them because they look great, and I've never had to water them. If you can imagine. And so my buddy Dan recommended that I get a couple. I was like, all right, whatever. And they're the best.
I feel like you can somehow still kill the fake plant. You as in Kyle Bryant. So I'm a little worried for the fake plant.
Yeah.
But
well, so they've survived like 3 years.
Okay.
So, but they're out of the way, Yeah. So thank you, fake plants.
That's amazing.
And thank you for listening today. We're really grateful that you joined us on the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Check out our show notes at twodisableddudes.com to find a link to Sean's column about the subject that we talked about today. Please share and subscribe to this show on all your podcast apps. Until next time, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to stay connected.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player.